Senator Barack Obama has put forth numerous tax proposals, including higher tax rates on workers, entrepreneurs, and investors. He also wants to boost the level of double taxation for dividends and capital gains, and he is a chief sponsor of Senate legislation that would handicap American entrepreneurs and investors by making it very difficult for them to utilize low-tax jurisdictions, thus putting them at a serious disadvantage when competing in global markets. Today, though, we want to discuss Senator Obama's proposal to impose the Social Security payroll tax on household income above $250,000. I'm Dan Mitchell of the Cato Institute. On behalf of the Center for Freedom and Prosperity, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. Let's jump right into the issue. As we all know, Social Security is facing a huge long-run deficit. The chart you see on the screen shows the Social Security Administration's estimate of annual revenue and spending between 2008 and 2082, adjusted for inflation. Promised benefits exceed projected revenues by a whopping $24.9 trillion during this period. That's a lot of money, even in Washington, where politicians are experts at waste, fraud, and financial mismanagement. In an effort to shrink this giant deficit, Senator Obama wants to extend the Social Security payroll tax so that it is imposed on all income above $250,000. Now, a lot of people already are worried about the economic impact of Obama's proposal to kill the 2001 and 2003 income tax rate reductions. That would increase the top tax rate on productive behavior by 4.6 percentage points. Well, heck, that would be small potatoes compared to a Social Security scheme, which would boost the top tax rate by approximately 12 percentage points. In one fell swoop, America's top tax rate would be at French and German levels. This would be bad news even for all of us who don't make anywhere near $250,000. High tax rates on investors and entrepreneurs slow economic growth. And it's regular people, not the Donald Trumps and Warren Buffetts of the world, who lose out when the economy is sluggish. This is a big reason why per capita disposable income is much lower in European nations that practice class warfare tax policy. But before explaining why Obama's tax plan is so risky, a bit of background on the Social Security program would be helpful. Social Security was created in 1935 as a contributory pension system. It operates on a pay-as-you-go basis, which means that benefits for current retirees are financed by the taxes of today's workers. And when today's workers retire, their benefits will be financed by the taxes of future workers. Now, this system works okay, so long as people don't live too long and there is an ever-expanding supply of younger workers. Of course, this isn't what's happening, which is why we have the giant deficit we discussed earlier. Another key point is that Social Security is an earned benefit. You only get money if you paid into the system for at least 10 years. Interestingly, your retirement benefit isn't calculated based on the amount of Social Security tax you paid. Instead, it depends on the amount of income that was subject to the tax. That's why the tax is only imposed today on income up to $102,000. As Mickey Kaus of Slate.com explains, in this contributory model, you pay in part of your paycheck until you've paid enough to cover your benefits. Then, if you keep earning, you don't have to contribute anymore. In some sense, your Social Security tax is like a premium that you pay while working in exchange for a lifetime annuity after retirement. That's not a very good annuity compared to what you would get if your taxes went into a personal retirement account, which is a reform adopted by more than 30 nations, but that's a separate issue. For our purposes, what's important is that Social Security isn't a welfare program. What you get upon retirement depends on the amount of income that was subject to the payroll tax while you were working. So what would be the effect of Senator Obama's Social Security tax increase? What would happen if the tax was imposed not just on income up to $102,000, but then also on income above $250,000? Experts have identified two problems. First, it makes Social Security more like a redistributionist welfare program rather than an earned benefit. People would still have to work to get money from the program, so it wouldn't be a pure welfare scheme, but there's no question that Obama's plan, by significantly weakening the relationship between taxes paid and benefits received, would undermine one of the key principles that Franklin Roosevelt wanted when he first created the program. Second, and more important, at least from an economic perspective, Senator Obama's Social Security tax increase would have a very negative impact on U.S. competitiveness. He would increase the top tax rate on highly productive taxpayers by approximately 12 percentage points. You don't have to be a wild-eyed supply-sider to realize that this is going to reduce incentives to work and increase incentives to hide money from the IRS. There's no way to raise top tax rates to French and German levels without suffering some degree of French-style and German-style economic stagnation. Even Paul Krugman, the stridently left-wing New York Times columnist, acknowledged that Obama's plan would push tax rates on some high-income Americans back to the level of the 1970s. Now, surely people don't want to return to Jimmy Carter-style economic misery. Now, Senator Obama's defenders presumably will argue that this is the price we have to pay to bail out a bankrupt Social Security program. But his scheme, even on paper, would close only a bit more than one-third of the long-run deficit. And in reality, it wouldn't even do that, since taxpayers will adjust their behavior. Those of you who watched our series on the Laffer curve understand that high tax rates discourage work and other forms of productive behavior while also encouraging tax avoidance and tax evasion. This is especially true for well-to-do people who have greater ability to control the timing and composition of their income, as well as more access to clever lawyers and accountants. According to Larry Lindsey, the former vice chairman of the Federal Reserve, Obama's plan would lead to a reduction of more than 11% in the amount of money affected taxpayers would earn and report to the government. This means not only less payroll tax revenue than predicted by simplistic static estimates, but the drop in taxable income also means less income tax revenue as well. Now, the government would still wind up collecting more money if Obama's proposal was enacted, Lindsey predicts, but at a very heavy cost. Writing in the Wall Street Journal, Lindsey says it is shocking to think that we have a presidential candidate who would make the private sector $5 poorer in order to make the government $1 richer. This is worth repeating. Obama's plan would reduce the private sector $5 to give the government an extra dollar. This is not just a bad proposal, it's a terrible proposal. About the only thing positive to say about it is that it's not as bad as his capital gains tax proposal. As he said in one of the Democratic debates, he doesn't care if his class warfare proposal to nearly double the tax rate on capital gains results in less money for the Treasury, so long as it satisfies his spiteful definition of fairness. Let's close with the caveat that this is not an anti-Obama or pro-McCain video. It is a video that explains why it is a terrible idea, especially in a competitive global economy, to extend the Social Security tax to income above $250,000. I'll be the first to state that Republicans also have plenty of bad ideas. McCain's cap-and-trade climate change proposal, for instance, is probably the biggest proposed expansion of government since Hillary Clinton's health care scheme in the early 1990s. And I've already written that President Clinton, on net, was probably more free market than President Bush, so I'm clearly not here to pimp for the GOP. What matters is freedom, not whether there's a D or an R after your name. On behalf of the Center for Freedom and Prosperity, thank you for your attention. Please share this video with friends and colleagues so we can help more people understand why higher taxes are not the way to fix Social Security.